In June 2025, Dune Awakening launched into the world and made hundreds of thousands of people addicted to spice, until most of us subsequently built up an immunity to it and completely dropped the game. Because Dune Awakening went from a highly successful launch to a small number of spice addicts still huffing the fumes. That said, Funcom has not given up on the game. If anything, they've finally realized that their original vision for the game wasn't working, and as such, Dune Awakening has already seen some pretty big changes in 2026. And so today I'm gonna answer the only question that actually matters. Is Dune Awakening worth playing in 2026? Before I start though, remember to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you don't, I'll send a Shai-Hulud to swallow your house. Many thanks. Now, starting with the character creator, straight off the bat I have to say that it's pretty damn good. It's nowhere near as detailed as, say, Black Desert Online or a single-player RPG like Dragon's Dogma 2, but it absolutely does the job. You can pick between a variety of skin tones here, faces, adjust your eye shape, and other stuff like facial shapes, height, hairstyle, hair color, and even thigh thickness. Ah yes, this is definitely one cultured character creator. Suffice it to say, customizing your character's base appearance is one of the categories where Dune Awakening definitely scores. It's fairly detailed, it's easy to understand, and you can create some pretty unique designs here. You also get to pick your background and what planet you hail from, and because I'm a unique and very special boy, I of course decided I was hailing from Ix, which sounds more like a brand of cough medicine than an actual place, but I digress. Now after you're done perfecting your Lisan al-Gaib stand-in, you're tossed headfirst into the sands where the game then gives you a small tutorial on how to craft basic items and teaching you how not to die. And it's actually surprising how little the game actually holds your hand after the tutorial section. And this is where the majority of the gameplay comes in. To be completely frank with you, Dune Awakening has some of the most enjoyable survival gameplay I've ever experienced, with maybe Subnautica being the only game that actually stands above it. You see, surviving on Arrakis is not simply a battle against the sun. If anything, it's a gigantic platforming game where the floor is lava. Or well, teeth. Hundreds and hundreds of teeth. The Shai-Hulud, or better known as the Sandworms, don't really need an introduction here. You've probably watched the movies at this point, so you know what they are. But if you've been living under a boulder for the past, 60 years, here's the gist of it. Big long thing hungry, big long thing eat you. Sand bad. Get it? The early hours of Dune Awakening pretty much boils down to making your way across the Haga Basin, which is the PvE map, into other parts of the map that provides higher quality materials that'll let you craft better and better items. But in order to do so, you have to avoid disturbing the big worms, and in the starting hours that'll be unavoidable as you'll only have access to, well, your feet and a slow-ass sand bike. As such, many early hours will have you trying to suppress your fight-or-flight response as you'll constantly be chased by sandworms. But let me tell you, there's few things that's as exhilarating as getting chased down by a skyscraper-sized monster. Now what makes this even more panic-inducing and thrilling is that you'll be losing most of your items if you do get gulped. So whenever you have a sandworm coming for you, your instincts naturally tell you to haul ass, or you'll be losing hours of progress in one fell swoop. And that brings us to progression. Now progression comes in two parts: base building and character progression. As you level, you will unlock points to invest in various skill trees, just like any other RPG. And in Dune Awakening you have the Bene Gesserit, the Mentat, Planetologist, Trooper, and Swordmaster trees. And the great thing about all of these skill trees is that you're not bound to any one of them. Sure, you start out with one, but as you explore the map and meet new NPC trainers and complete various prerequisite quests, you will inevitably unlock every tree should you choose to, whereupon you can then make your own hybrid build. Now in terms of build depth, I'd say that it's relatively complex and most builds have various strengths and weaknesses overall. PvP, for example, often comes down to a rock, paper, scissors match aside from the quality of gear between you and your opponent. That said though, some skills are extraordinarily handy, like the Shigawire Claw that lets you climb anything in a jiffy, or the Bindu Sprint which turns you into Desert Sonic. Then there is the planetologist skills that are simply a must for overall survival, but overall I'd say that there's enough abilities and builds here to provide some variety should you grow tired of your current setup. Base progression is equally well designed, I feel, or to be completely honest, it's probably one of my favorite things about Dune Awakening. First of all, unlocking new schematics for your base requires intel points, which are collectibles you'll find around the map, often in enemy bases and other hostile environments. That is to say, Funcom essentially pushes you to explore the map as much as you can, as you'll be heavily rewarded if you do. And not just with tons of intel points to invest in new schematics, but things like armor and weapon schematics, rare items and such. Secondly, slowly making your way towards the best blueprints and constantly upgrading your base with better refiners, crafting stations, and brand new walls is just very satisfying overall. And the loop of exploring the world, mining, and salvaging resources to then reinvesting in your base can hook you for hours upon hours. All this said, there is one element of the game that is, well, for a lack of a better word, janky. And that is, yes, you guessed it, the combat. Now don't get me wrong, Funcom genuinely tried to capture the specific Dune flavor here. We've got the iconic Holtzman shields, there's the whole slow blade penetrates the shield mechanic, and you've got enough gadgets to make a Mentat's head spin. But actually playing it just feels really floaty, man. Yes, even in 2026. Now, to give credit where it's due, the gunplay is somewhat solid, but then again, making a gun feel good isn't necessarily the most complicated thing in the world, but I do appreciate it for what it is. And then the shield mechanic is pretty cool on paper. You see, a lot of enemies you cannot just spray down with a pistol from 50 yards away, as most of the time you'll actually have to get in close and hold your melee attack to bypass their shields. But in practice, it both looks and feels like two geriatric people poking at each other with their walking sticks. So yeah, the combat isn't exactly the star of the show in Dune Awakening. It's functional and it gets the job done when you're just clearing out a random outpost to scoop up those sweet intel points, but if you're coming into Dune Awakening expecting tight, hyper-responsive combat of a dedicated action game, well, you might have to temper your expectations just a bit. Alright, now, we have to talk about the several kilometer-sized elephant in the room here. And no, I don't mean the grandfather worms. I'm talking about the deep desert. If you played Dune Awakening at launch, you know the Deep Desert was an absolute nightmare. Funcom originally envisioned it as this huge high-stakes sandbox where players would constantly battle for spice control. But in practice, it was a gank fest where PvE players trying to farm endgame materials would just get immediately deleted by roaming death squads. But you know what? That's no longer the case. You see, Funcom looked at their data and realized that the majority of their players were exclusively sticking to PvE content, and forcing those players into a PvP meat grinder just to progress simply wasn't working out. So, with patch 1.320 that just recently dropped, they completely separated the Deep Desert into two distinct instances. If you just want to vibe, explore shipwrecks, and farm materials without catching a bullet to the back, you can now enter a pure PvE instance where player combat is completely disabled. On top of that, the entire Haga Basin starter zone has now been converted to 100% PvE. But if you're one of those sweaty tryhards who lives for the thrill of the hunt, you can jump into the PvP instance. And the devs are still giving people a reason to risk it all, because mining and spice harvesting yields are multiplied by a whopping 2.5 times in the PvP instance. Would you look at that? It's an actually good risk versus reward system now. Very cool. Frankly, Dune Awakening is now in the healthiest state it's ever been. And that naturally brings us to the future, because Funcom has laid out exactly what the future of Dune Awakening looks like in 2026. First up, on May 19th, we are getting update 1.4, which brings the Water Wars DLC. Now, fair warning, despite the badass name, the community is a little salty right now because it's essentially just a cosmetic pack and no actual water and no actual wars. Kinda clickbaity there, Funcom, not gonna lie. But the update itself does bring some new overland testing stations and mission locations to keep things fresh. But the real meat and potatoes will be in the Chapter 2 free update, as this is going to bring a much needed continuation to the main storyline, dynamic encounters out in the desert, new social hub contracts, and the ability to finally re-customize your character if you regret your day one haircut. And looking even further ahead, well, Funcom has officially slated the first major game expansion alongside the console release for the second half of 2026. So yeah, if you've been waiting for this game to drop on PlayStation or Xbox, well, your adventure on Arrakis will soon begin. So, at the end of the day, is Dune Awakening worth playing in 2026? Well, yes, but with some extra steps. You see, Dune Awakening is a brilliant open-world survival game, but it's not much of an MMO at the moment. You can run around for days without encountering other players, especially if you start on empty servers, the auction house barely has any items on it, and the game is filled to the brim with ghost towns of player bases past. However, if you're a Dune fan and you just want to step into a respectable simulation of Arrakis, Dune Awakening will be right up your alley. If you're looking for some of the sweatiest PvP combat in MMO history, look no further, because if that's your thing, Dune Awakening is your masochistic soulmate. But expect jank and lonely hours. That is to say, if you're an introvert, the 100 hours you'll get out of it is worth the $50. However, if you play MMOs for the community, you should probably look at other games. Or simply wait for a sale to come around. Anyway, thank you to all you wonderful Ensven members here on YouTube and on Patreon for supporting the channel. By the by, if you're a veteran member here on YouTube or on Patreon, then don't forget to join our Ensven community Discord. And finally, thank you for watching. This has been Mr. Holton, signing off.